There's a famous bald person named Seth Godin. Just Google Seth and he'll be the first hit. And he famously or infamously said that there is no such thing as writer's block.
Yeah, I'm notorious for saying there's absolutely no such thing as writer's block.
Now, I've known dozens and dozens of writers. I fired them, hired them, coached them. And the amazing thing is that every single time I ask a writer, whatever kind of writer, what they think of Seth Godin's idea that there's no such thing as writer's block, and I can tell you, they hate it. They hate him.
We're trying to replace Giambi. This guy could be it.
I agree. Yes.
Here's Godin's analogy. When we wake up in the morning, we don't suffer from talker's block. We talk, even if it's gibberish, we don't lack for words.
Guys are just talking. Talking, la 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 la, like this is business as usual. It's not.
And you as a writer, for those who try to make their living or part of their living communicating as writers, we don't lack for words. You have an amazing vocabulary. You understand the intricacies of grammar, and you know you've read more books than 10 other people combined. We don't lack for words. We lack for a way of using words to actually communicate, to get what we want out of our words. I write every day, but that's something I had to learn. And I work with writers every day, coaching, helping, mentoring, and reading and editing. Yes, even editing some of the material that's given me. And I can tell you that writing is both harder and easier than we think. So I've got a handful of ideas, quick ideas about how to get started, how to write more freely, how to write well, how to write better, how to write in ways that actually accomplish something. And if you stick around to the end, I've got a story, a big breakthrough idea about how we can learn to communicate and how words work. Yes, words can actually work for us. So stick around to the end, but start by tapping the like button and we'll get right into it. Hi, I'm James Callahan and this is the Do-Over Show. And I have to admit, a big part of my do-over was learning how to leverage my academic and educational background so that I could become a writer. Yes, I wrote books, journal articles, peer-reviewed journals. I made presentations every day, lectures, sharing, writing things. But then I had to learn how to actually use my skills as a writer to develop them in order to become someone who could influence others, who could help others by what I wrote. And part of that was making myself into a writer, a copywriter, a technical writer, as well as someone who was able to persuade others, use words in order to get something done. First, a story. One time I was tasked with hiring a writer for a comms team, and I reviewed the dozens and dozens of resumes and portfolios that were submitted and came up with a handful of what I thought were strong candidates. And as I interviewed them, I started to ask this funny question, and that is, I said, do you write for fun? To a person, they said, no, I write to get paid. I write because I have to. I write because that's my work. No one just said they had to write in order to be alive, like breathing. And that gave me a tip-off to what kind of writers I was actually talking to. Technical writers, people who wrote as a profession, but did not write because they were inspired to write all the time or wanted to expand their capacity. No, they were people who learned a rote set of skills, learned a template, learned a technical form of writing, and wrote for that. That is, not all writers are the same. And we need to figure out where we are on the spectrum from I have to write in order to make a living to I have to write in order to live. So let's tackle what it is that most people who need to become writers struggle with, and that is where to start. It's not just a blank page and blinking cursor that freaks us out, but it's how do we actually get started knowing what it is we're supposed to be writing or what we want to call writing. There's this old movie, Sean Connery movie, called Finding Forrester, and he is a Pulitzer Prize winning author who's now a recluse, who begins to mentor a young kid who has a lot of words, doesn't know how to get them together, put them together into something persuasive. So he hands the kid a copy of an old article that he wrote and tells him to start with those words, and then when he feels his own words coming, then just start to use his own words. That is, for many of us, especially for technical writers, it's easier to begin with something than nothing. And most of us have that something in place. We have something that worked before, a grant proposal or a submission or a sample of something that said, yep, that's what we like, that's what we're aiming for. So that's where we start. we begin to play with it. This is not editing. You're not just proofing and spelling it for typos. No, you're using it as a start in order to begin to write your own way. So you change. You move from that something to your something. It's one of the easiest ways to jumpstart your start. So to become a better writer, you actually have to start writing, and then we have to embrace this motto. This one's going to be tough, and that is, done is better than perfect. Yep, back to Seth Godin's idea about writer's block. It's really not writer's block, it's ego block. We have words, we put things together, we're just insecure about them. It's our ego that gets in the way of writing more freely, more persuasively, just writing more. To be able to get over ourselves and to begin to share means that we need to embrace something important, and that is realize that every single thing that we write, especially in the workplace, that will be submitted, will be reviewed or edited or evaluated by others before it goes public, before it's seen universally. And even if it is, nothing that we write is really final. Everything can be edited, from our tweets to our posts. Even if we publish something and it has a typo in it, we don't need to apologize about the typo. We can actually make fun of it and say, did you notice the typo in the last thing I wrote? And guess what people will do? They will go back and read the last thing you wrote, because everybody likes to look at that car crash on the side of the road, that typo in your copy. Enjoy it, embrace it, and get over the idea that it has to be perfect because your ego is so fragile it can't handle anything less than perfection. And start to embrace the idea that done is better than perfect. Now let's tackle the question of why it is you want to write. Do you have to write for your job? Is it something that you're asked to do, but it's just a requirement and you're not sure how to do it? Or are you somebody who wants to have greater influence? You want to become a clearer communicator. You want to have more importance on your team and in your organization or in your field or your profession. And learning how to write persuasively in communicating is different than just learning how to put words on a piece of paper or in an email. Or do you dream of the idyllic life of living in a cabin in the woods by a babbling brook, drinking coffee, sipping it early in the morning, or tea, or maybe drinking your whiskey late at night, and just writing freely, and you're famous, and every once in a while you go into the village or city in order to entertain the masses with a popular reading of your latest work? Whatever kind of writer it is you think you want to be, you have to figure it out first. That way we free ourselves. If we don't want to write the next great American novel, we just want to write better, more persuasively, more clearly, then get over the idea that you have to be the great American novelist, and instead be someone who is able to communicate effectively in punchy ways, in engaging ways that get responses from people. Because figuring out what kind of writer we want to be will free us so that we don't have to be every kind of writer in the world. And by the way, no one is every kind of writer. There is no writer, no matter how capable, that can write all different kinds of writing, biography, prose, poetry, technical writing, that can write it all without one bleeding over into the other. We tend to gravitate towards those areas that we are either good at by default, that's laziness, not effort, or we expend the energy, we exert ourselves to try to become a better writer in the area and the type of writing that we want to be a writer in, to communicate better. And that brings us to something odd, and that is communicating in our writing. Most of us consider writing to be communicating. It's not. And when most of us write, we're not so much concerned with communicating as we're meeting the ideas or the deadlines of the people who impose that on us, or the form or the structure. We're not really interested in communicating so that people do things or do things differently because of what we write. And when we do try to write to get an effect or to get a response or give people a call to action, we tend to be really manipulative or just do this, instead of learning how to communicate in ways that actually engage with an audience, our audience. If you're an academic or in a professional field, when we write within those fields, we write to show that we have credibility, standing, knowledge, that we should be respected by our peers. But we're writing in a technical sense in that niche, for that niche. And again, we're trying to prove to people that we are competent and should be listened to and respected and acknowledged. It's about us. But it's not so much that we are writing to communicate or persuade others. We think that by being credible in our field, we'll be able to persuade others that whatever it is we're saying, no matter what it is we're saying, that they'll listen to. Again, that's technical writing, professional writing, academic writing. That's not persuasive writing. That kind of writing is checking the boxes so that people will respect us, because respecting us is really what we're after. But if you're looking to communicate, to persuade, to change minds, to win hearts and minds, then learning how to write with the kind of empathy that's necessary to engage the audience, that's communicating. That's not just writing. That's learning how to write in order to cause an effect. Now, here's that groundbreaking idea that I mentioned about learning how to do things with words. There's about a 60-plus-year-old book by a person named J.L. Austin, and it's entitled How to Do Things with Words. And in it, he describes how words accomplish things, even simple statements. He calls them locutions, like someone saying, I'm cold. Okay, imagine someone you're sitting in a room with says, I'm cold. Now, if you like that person or love that person or want that person to love you, they haven't asked you to do anything. They just said, I'm cold. What are you going to do? That's the illocutionary force that you feel when you hear somebody that you care about or want to care about or you want them to care about you. They say, I'm cold, so you'll get up, you'll close a window, you'll open a window, you'll give them a blanket, you'll change the thermostat, you'll do anything. And the action that you take is the perlocutionary action. It's the action that you take according to the force that you feel, the illocutionary force of a simple locution by someone saying, I'm cold. Now, the person who said it didn't ask you to do anything, but you did something. Why is that? Because of the force that you felt, because you wanted to be part of or involved with or demonstrate that you were part of that person's life, that you cared. And that is finding your community. That means finding your audience. That means influence. That is how to write persuasively, so that we identify and elicit a response that we want. So where are you going to start to become the writer you want to become and the kind of writer that you want to become or have to be? Please, in the comments below, start there and leave a description. I'm going to start here. I'm going to try this, or I've tried that. And let's begin to learn from one another. And thanks for being part of the Do-Over Show. Please, could you tap the like button? Because it really cares. It shows you care. And while you're down there, how about you subscribe and ring the notifications bell so you don't miss the next episode? I'm so glad you found me, and I found you. Thanks.